you know these meetings are recorded. So welcome to CSAC September. My name is Sam Haskins. I work for Oregon Health Authority with Nat Jacobs. They are out of the office today, so I'm going to get the meeting started. And then we'll have Sharon Smith, a member of the executive committee, who is also a family representative. She'll take over facilitation for me once she arrives. But why don't we all get started with introductions? If you could start by saying your name, preferred pronouns, and then your role at this meeting, whether that is a family or youth representative with lived experience, or whether you work for an agency. And just as a nice icebreaker, if anyone would like to say their favorite thing about fall. For me, my favorite thing about fall is all of the changing leaves. And then we'll just do a round robin. I'll go ahead and pass over to Roberta Lincoln. Roberta, are you there? You're muted, Roberta.
You might have to do *6.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I am Roberta Lincoln, she, her pronouns, and I am a family representative with a lot of lived experience recently. And my favorite thing about fall, I think, is apple cider.
All right, and then why don't we go to the next person, Annette Marcus, and then you can choose the next person. Thank you.
Good morning, all. My name is Annette Marcus. I use she and her pronouns. I am a staff member at Association of Oregon Community Mental Health Programs, and I'm the policy manager for the Oregon Alliance to Prevent Suicide. And I think the thing I'm leaning into the cozy factor of fall. Because otherwise I get really sad about missing being outside, but I'm gonna, make some hot chocolate and just really enjoy cozy time. And I will throw it over to Roxanne, if Roxanne's here.
Sorry, hello. I have a kiddo this morning, so I'm running a little late and I'll be in the office with my camera on soon. Roxanne Edwinson, she, her pronouns. I am the rapid program director at Mindsight. So it's a behavioral health program that does enhanced evaluations for kids entering foster care. And in general, just a licensed psychologist that does evaluations on complex kiddos. I have 2 littles, and the best thing for me about fall that I look forward to is pumpkin patches and playing in the leaves. Let's see. Miranda.
Good morning. My name is Miranda, she, her pronouns, and I am a youth support specialist at Trillium Family Services. So I have lived experience and I'm excited to see what these meetings are all about. Thank you. And how about we'll go to Chelsea. Oh, and my favorite thing about fall is also the cozy factor. Wearing sweaters and being curled up on the couch is my favorite.
Thank you, Miranda, and thanks for being here. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Chelsea Holcomb. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Child and Family Behavioral Health at the Oregon Health Authority. And I am a hoodie girl. I love hoodies all the time. And luckily my home office is in the coldest room in the house. So I've been wearing hoodies all year, but my favorite thing about fall is that now I get to wear my hoodies outside. So I'm very excited about that. I want to do just an admin check. Are you all being able to see live transcription as we're talking at the bottom of your screen? Okay. So Sam, I don't know why it's not working, but if we can work on that, I'll try to help on my end. And I will pass over to Bernardino de la Torre.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. My name is Bernardino de la Torre, and I'm the substance use disorder youth Substance Use Disorder Program and Policy Coordinator with OHA in the Child and Family Behavioral Health Unit, and I use he, his, him pronouns, and I'll pass it over to Kathleen.
Morning. My name is Kathleen Burns. I'm the lead on the Child and Family Behavioral Health Team, she, her pronouns. And my favorite thing about fall is warm tea of various varieties. And I will pass it on to Kara.
Good morning, I'm Kara Sept. I am a family member and I've been doing advocacy and advisory work for many, many years. I have lots of lived experience through my family and children. And I'm also a nurse and serve as the president of Oregon Family Advisory Council. In this meeting, I serve as a family member. My favorite part about fall is it not being so hot because I hate it being too hot, and I love pumpkin spice lattes. I am a diehard fan. So I'm going to pass it over to Roxanne Wilson.
Hi, sorry. I'm at the office with my kiddos and I'm wearing my ears, but my name is Roxanne Franklin Wilson, and I am actually transitioning from being the executive director to being the board president this next month, I think, of our nonprofit alternative focus virtual school, alternative school for individuals with experiencing mental health challenges. And I'm also a parent, a family member, and an individual with lived experience with mental health. And my favorite part of fall is painting it. Oh, and I will pass it over to, I kind of got here late and I don't really know who went already, so can you choose?
I can go. I haven't gone yet.
Okay.
I also came late, so I'm going to have the same issue if anyone wants to, prepare themselves. But my name is Shannon. I use she or they pronouns, and this is also an update, but I'm the Healthy Transitions Project Director now, since it's been a minute since we've all met. And I don't know if we're doing announcements after this for the council or current, but my old position is posted. What else? Oh, my favorite thing about fall is like that sound that leaves make when you step on them after they've fallen. It just, growing up in Florida, hadn't experienced that before. It's very satisfying.
And then Nakobe, would you be willing to go next?
Oh, totally. Hello, CSAC family. My name is Nakobe. I use she, they pronouns. I am the community engagement analyst here at OHA, housed in the wonderful Office of Recovery and Resilience. And I feel like I'm somewhat adopted by multiple other teams. My favorite part of fall, and I know this is gonna sound awful to native Oregonians, but it's planning all of the ways that I will be able to leave for weeks at a time and get some sun so that the seasonal depression doesn't completely destroy me by February. Oh, and all the fall leaves and colors and being able to wear a ton of jackets. But yeah, planning places that are warm during winter. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Like fall is when we say winter is coming, the atmospheric river is on its way. Super excited to be here and to see everyone.
All right, so next, how about we have Grace Bullock, and then after Grace, can we have Kirk Wolf?
There we are. Good morning, everyone. Happy fall. Grace Bullock, Senior Mental Health Officer at the Oregon Department of Education. Also someone with lived experience and family experience. And oh my gosh, I just love fall. It's my favorite time of year. And I think you've named it all: pumpkins, lattes, warm fuzzy sweaters, a wood stove. I love being able to light my wood stove. I like the fact that it gets darker earlier so I can do all my candles and twinkly lights and all the things in the evening. So yes, my favorite time of year: leaves, cold walks, all of it. So thank you. Good to see you all.
Kirk Wolf, he, him, child psychiatrist practicing in Oregon for 30 years. I serve on the OCAP Executive Committee by virtue of being the Oregon delegate to ACAP. I also serve on the Executive Committee for the Alliance to Prevent Suicide, the Oregon Psychiatric Physicians Association, as well as the Oregon Medical Association Board of Trustees. Glad to be a part of CSAC. Thank you.
All right, and then how about Carol, Byron, and then Chrissy?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carol Byron, and I'm from LeGrand. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the retired director of special education from LeGrand School District. I've had 40-some years working with kids with special needs and behavior issues. My main concern for being here is to try to figure out how to get good services for kids in Eastern Oregon and in the rural communities in Oregon. I feel like we're really, really hurting here. My favorite thing about fall is all the beautiful colors in Eastern Oregon. And I love the change in the colors here. The leaves are starting to fall. So anyway, thank you for having me back.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chrissy. My pronouns are she, hers. I work for Youth Era, and I'm the peer training director. I also work alongside Nat Jacobs, doing the statewide system of care coaching and technical assistance. I'm here at this meeting because I'm going to be newly supervising the YYEA position that we have at Youth Era, and they hold a seat here at CSAC. So before I have them hired on, I really wanted to kind of meet and see what the goals and vision and dreams are for this council and hear from you all. My favorite thing about fall is, it's that time that you for me, you kind of retreat. As an artist, I need to kind of feed off the seasonal depression that comes. So I really bang out a lot of art during that time. And then when spring and summer are here, it's like I can just play and kind of like reabsorb. So I'm looking forward to the art creation.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. I got a little note about the live transcription. If you'd like to see that, I put it in the chat, but it's on the bottom controls. It's the third from the right. It says live transcript. And if you click on the little up caret, you should be able to see those. Thank you so much. And thank you for that note, Shannon. Let's move on to Dana, and then I believe Kathleen Burns hasn't introduced herself yet. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. I'm Dana Hafter-Manza. I use she, her pronouns. I work as a family partner with NAMI Multnomah. So have my own lived experience, both personally and as a family member, but I'm here in the capacity of working with NAMI. I have a hard time answering this question. I do love a lot of things about fall. The thing that's coming up for me most right now is like, for some reason this year, soup is just calling my name, and I've been really excited all summer. It's been so hot and I've been wanting to make soup and haven't yet. So I'm excited about soups and chilies and stews and whatnot.
All right. Thank you so much, Dana. And Kathleen did already introduce herself. So I'll move on to, I just have the email Kay Edens, and then after Kay Edens, Liz Schwartz. And we're just
Beth Edens. It says Kay Edens because I go by a different, and it won't change. I joined a little late, so I think I've got what you're doing. I'm Beth Edens. I use she, her pronouns. I work for Trillium Family Services, but I'm here as a family member. One of the best things about fall, besides wearing hoodies, is that my allergies get a lot better for a while until molds come along. So.
Good morning, Liz Schwartz. I use she, her pronouns with the Oregon Youth Authority. And my favorite thing about fall is all the fall things, but my partner is like a master baker and she's starting to get rolling on all that stuff. And it's not good for my waistline, but I will just cruise straight through the holidays and then think about that later.
All right, and then could we have Maureen Sefovich and then Shanda? And then if anyone has not gone, please, if you could just raise your hand and I'll call on you next. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Maureen Seferovich. I use she, her pronouns. I work for HealthShare. Happy to be here today and love fall, all the things. And baking sounds delicious. I made some apple crisp the other day and it was good. So I am excited for all those things and pumpkin patches. I'm going to add that in too.
Hi, I'm Shanda Hostetler. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with the Oregon Health Authority in Youth Suicide Prevention. I got a bunch of new sweaters, new to me sweaters from the thrift very recently. So I am super pumped about the weather getting a little chillier so I can wear my sweaters without just getting really sweaty, because that's not great about summer. So my sweaters, which I'm actually not wearing one right now, but I will change that later. Am I last? I noticed Alex.
We have Alex. I'm so sorry. I missed you, Alex.
That's me.
Thank you.
Hey, Alex Palm, he, him pronouns. I'm with Child Welfare in Central Office. I'm a policy analyst doing work between child welfare and the health parity mostly. And apologies, I'm going to be off camera most of the morning. So you're also sharing attention with a 2-year-old. But I will be here and present and really excited to talk to you all today. Oh, and my favorite thing about fall is that it's getting closer to ski season, and that means skiing. So I don't know if that's a good way to live, to just be excited for now because it's closer to later, but we'll go with it.
I love that too. I miss skiing. All right, so now that everyone's been introduced, does anyone have any announcements, any further announcements?
Yes, sorry, it took me a second to unmute. But like I mentioned earlier, we're looking for a new Healthy Transitions Youth and Young Adult Coordinator. For anybody that's been in a youth peer support role, this would be a great way to transition from direct service to other types of work in the mental health field. And if you have any questions about it, you can let me know, but I'm going to put my email and the link to the position posting in the chat. I also did the job for 8 months and it's really nice, frankly. And it's all work from home, so.
Right, wonderful. And before we get to you, Annette, I just got a message that Arden didn't have a moment to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm Arden Romanette. I did not raise my hand. I work at ODE as the Mental Health Project Coordinator, and I am looking forward to the weather cooling down. Thanks.
And thank you. And Jamie Gardner just arrived. If you would like to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Hi, Jamie Gardner, she, her pronouns, COO with Youthera.
All right, thank you so much. And Annette, you had your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to announce that the Alliance has developed some tools for people who are interested in testifying at local school board meetings or other places like that. And it's specifically a tool around how do we support and affirm LGBTQ youth and how do we address some of the narrative, some of the things that are being said that are really, really harmful to our community. And just I would like to offer that as a resource to anyone. And I think it's a very important space for us to be speaking up for youth and children because of some of the efforts there have been across the state to really fight having an affirming atmosphere at schools. And we see that as a really important part of suicide prevention. So part of these tools talk about how having an affirming school and using this language, et cetera, actually can save lives. So anyhow, I will put my email into chat if anybody would like to get a copy of that toolkit.
All right, and any other announcements at this time? All right, so I think we'll wait for, oh, yes,
Sorry
go
about
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kirk Wolf. I'm going to be moderating a panel at the annual Oregon Medical Association meeting October 1st. That's going to focus on youth suicide prevention. We've got 3 panel members, OHSU faculty, Rebecca Marshall, Ebony Clark of Multnomah County, and then Dwight Holton of Lines for Life. It's going to be an exciting focus on youth suicide prevention in terms of innovative programs, and anybody who would like to attend can visit www.oma.org.
Would you mind putting that in the chat for everyone?
I'll do my best. I'm using my cell phone. I'll do my best.
Understood. Okay, thank you. All right, and would anyone else like to give an announcement?
Yes, this is Roxanne. I just wanted to share that I'm going to be presenting at the National Alternative Education Association Conference in St. Louis in the middle of October, and I'm going to be teaching educators legislative advocacy. That was all.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, so then we do have a note in the agenda for review, big view, and preview, but I think we'll wait for Sharon when she arrives. So without further ado, Bernardino De La Torre, who works with us in Child Family Behavioral Health, is going to be giving a presentation on substance use disorder treatment services. Bernardino, may I pass it to you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. First of all, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. And actually, as everyone was introducing themselves, it was really wonderful to see a lot of familiar faces that have come across my path in my professional life. And it's really good to see you again. So I just wanted to, first of all, just state that really I don't have like I have a few slides I want to show just to kind of give some information on what Oregon looks like for the youth substance use disorder use. But basically, I really want to just give an overview of the 1-year marker that I've been in this position now. What I've seen, some of the efforts to try to improve the systems of care across the board where there's many gaps in services for youth, children, young adults as well. And just kind of give an overview and really just kind of have a discussion, because I know that here in this group, there's a lot of really talented and very subject matter experts as well that can perhaps help me to maybe get a better perspective of what can be done with some advice with some of the issues that we're seeing here in Oregon. So really, I just would like to give an overview and then maybe have a discussion. I also have a couple of questions just to kind of maybe to generate some discussion and hopefully be just kind of a lively discussion, basically more than just a presentation from Bernardino. But I would like to give just maybe a overview of the collaborative youth residential treatment facilities in Oregon, some of the efforts done in prevention across the state, and then some of the harm reduction efforts as well, given the fentanyl epidemic that we're seeing across our communities in Oregon and across the nation. First of all, I think maybe it would be good if I just share a little bit of the collaborative, how it started. In November, we had our first collaborative that was put together because of the situation, the crisis that Oregon has been under for quite some time now, with closures of residential treatment facilities, outpatient as well, and then the continuum of care where there's just so many gaps. For example, gaps that like not having detox programs for youth, not having psychiatric residential treatment programs for youth, and then the very limited residential treatment SUD programs that we have. There's 4 total, but the collaborative was put together to really have community input voice, which is something that OHA has been wanting. I didn't really start it. My predecessor, Don, who was in this position, actually made attempts to start the collaborative, and there were only I think a total of about 3 or 4 that were brought together, and then there was a lull of a break due to COVID. I then got hired, and then thought that it would be important to bring the collaborative back and create a group list of people across the state of Oregon that encompasses community members, people from the nonprofit sectors, from counties, from the state, different departments, different teams, and it has had some success. I've also brought in some presenters to talk about co-occurring disorders, integration of that, which is some of the efforts that have been ongoing, and also brought in parenting education from OSU to talk about how can we incorporate more SUD within parent training for the younger families. What started at the same time with the collaboratives was the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission had gotten some money from the legislature to do a substance use disorder inventory and gap analysis that was contracted by OHSU with Dr. Waddell, Elizabeth Waddell, and Katie Lanahan, research assistants, who have spent the last year, circa around September of last year when I got hired, to begin to do the inventory, and then just most recently have finished with a report on the gap analysis, and they'll be finalizing it at the end of September 30th. They'll have the full report. Right now, they just have a very basic report out that was presented to the ADPC, but I had them come in and present, and then they're coming back in November of 18 to do a presentation on the final report out of the SUD inventory and the gap analysis. So the collaborative was really instrumental in helping me to really bring the community voice in to help figure out how can we make changes to the system of care for youth in SUD world, and also be able to give me some guidance around the $2 million that was that came out of the Substance Abuse Prevention Treatment Block Grant, ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, that was signed by Joe Biden. And so there was $2 million to spend, and just wanted to get community input about where these funds should go. We did get a lot of feedback on where the funds should go, and resounding was more like peer support services for youth within school and surrounding communities, more prevention, a lot more on prevention. And so just, the collaborative was very instrumental in that way for bringing the community voice and also giving me some kind of a guide. I did develop right from the get-go, asked for volunteers to start the steering committee. For the collaborative, several people stepped up and it had really good representation across the board. For the state of Oregon, we had representation from the rural frontier areas. We had lived experiences. Kendall Burns, who recently got hired with OHA as a co-facilitator with lived experience, young adult, as well as others from the treatment facility, both prevention and treatment facility representation in the steering committee. So they actually help with guiding my position to figure out how to spend some of this money and focus where to place it. Right now, presently, we're working on trying to help fund some of the education campaigns on fentanyl, and then also to try to develop a symposium for youth, symposium for peer mentors and preventionists within the state, to have once a year. These to help develop the workforce in terms of peer mentors, which is really needed. So then the collaborative, again, like I said, was very important piece within the last year to try to help figure out how to move forward, and then also spend these monies. I know $2 million sounds to some a lot. It's really not. It's a one-time funding, so it has a different strategy than if it were like ongoing. So that's kind of a picture overview of the collaborative. Again, we have our next collaborative on November 14th. If people aren't on the list or not getting information, please do put your email on the text chat here so that I can add you to the list and you can get the next agenda coming up, where OHSU will be doing a presentation on the report out of the inventory and the gap analysis. A lot of good information from that report. Gives us a really good perspective of where the state of Oregon is at in terms of SUD services and the needs as well. I'd like to also now just kind of move a little bit to talk a little bit about residential treatment. When I first got hired here in September, I really was kind of out of the loop because I was doing mostly prevention in schools, and also working and contracting with Washington County with some of the community-based programs. And at the time, Yes House closed about a year before I came onto this position. That was probably one of the most culturally specific residential treatment programs in the state. Unfortunately, it closed. The other one that closed just before the end of the last year was formerly known to Paul for Health. Unfortunately closed both their residential and their outpatient. Madrono had to close their outpatient program as well toward the end of last year. They were hoping to re-engage it again with For Health, but were unable to. I really don't know what happened to Yes House. I don't think that it will ever come back. And then there's technically only 4 residential treatment programs in the state of Oregon right now, 2 of which are doing fairly okay, although getting impacts of COVID makes it a little bit difficult with staff and youth in the program with accepting intakes. So the numbers are low. There's 2 other programs in Prineville and Roseburg that are struggling with staff issues. One of them in Prineville with not being able to obtain drug and alcohol counselors. And the one in Roseburg is dealing with having difficulty obtaining milieu staff, residential support staff. And so it's kind of close to coming to closure if supports stop for them. I don't think the one in Roseburg will be able to sustain itself after January if they stop getting funding for the unutilized beds. Right now, personally, I think there's only 5 in the program. Next week will be 7. So the numbers are low in the residential treatment facilities. There's actually been some efforts by a couple other agencies to try to open up residential facilities like 8th Street and Springfield. Was about to open one up, but then the building that they were trying to open up did not go through with their contract, I believe. And so they kind of put a standstill on that. They were also interested in opening up a subacute detox program, which the state of Oregon does not have for youth, and it's really needed. So that's a major gap. But 8th Street was looking into that, but it does become a bit complex with the licensures, with the staff that is needed. And so, you know, the residential treatment program, we're in a pretty bad crisis with trying to support them and trying to help others open up, and it's much needed. So, you know, it's kind of difficult for some of these kids that go to the emergency hospital that are detoxing there because we don't have a detox, and then trying to get them into a residential treatment facility sometimes becomes a little bit problematic for the appropriate level of program that they need. So residential treatment programs, 4 total right now, and I know OYA has their own internal programs that I really can't speak of, but these 4 that I've been working with, you know, I've been trying to support. Some of them are getting surge staff right now, but that's on a monthly basis, getting you know, reviewed to how far it will support that in terms of providing surge staff for the programs to stay open. So that's kind of a little overview of the residential treatment, overview of the collaborative. In terms of prevention, I must say that, you know, about 20 years ago, or just a little bit under 20 years ago, Oregon was actually at the forefront, was one of the leaders in the nation in terms of prevention. And I remember when I first started working in Lane County, I was really big on prevention, and people were kind of knocking it, saying, oh, you know, that's on the way down. They're not funding that. It seemed like the funding streams for prevention were fragmented, both nationally and within Oregon. You know, I hate to say that, it seemed like it was like almost done on purpose. I just don't think that they put very much emphasis on prevention at all, and it dwindled down. And right now, presently, where the state of Oregon ends up is like 3rd to last in the nation, which is unfortunate. And so one of the things that I focused on from the beginning of the year was to figure out how can we begin to bring back into the forefront prevention, and not only within schools, but within our communities across the board, where prevention is needed. And so I started to work and joined, just before I came onto this position, I joined the addictions prevention section through the Oregon Public Health Association. And then the last 9 months or so had been working together with the top preventionists in the state of Oregon to come up with a definition, a concrete definition to understand what do we, when we say substance abuse prevention, what are we talking about? Because when the word prevention was tossed out, it means a lot of things to a lot of people. You know, if you're in law enforcement, that means like, oh, preventing crime. If you're in the medical field, oh, preventing diseases. You know, so prevention means many things for a lot of people. But when we talk about substance use prevention, we needed to kind of have a common language, and we needed to kind of begin to the base basically for the state of Oregon to have a definition. So we worked closely together to come up with that. And then I started aligning myself more with the Alcohol Drug Policy Commission, where I started really vital and important to work together in collaboration to try to help make changes within the state of Oregon, particularly within prevention and treatment, but mostly more emphasis on prevention, because that's what came out from the collaborative. It's resounding like we need more prevention. We want more prevention. We need more peer mentors in schools and within the communities, or coming out of treatment, you know, or before treatment. And we know research shows that when you have peer mentors, that we I'm sorry, I see a question. I'm sorry that I just saw the person with their top preventionist in Oregon. Oh, well, you know, people from the addictions prevention section from Oregon Public Health Association, you know, like Jill Dale, Debbie Jones, Julie Spackman, Claire Rujol, Trudy, name escapes me. One that just retired also that was really great was from Youth Contact, I believe it was. Judy Harris, and then another one from Lane County, Luis, I can't remember his last name, I'm sorry, but there's quite a few of us that there's quite a few really good preventionists in the state of Oregon. But let's see, in terms of talking about prevention, the big thing that I can tell you, you know, it's a group effort. It's not one individual. I like to work in collaboration. I like to work in teams. It's not an I, such as I mentioned in the past in the collaborative, it's not an I thing, it's a we. Together we can help solve the problems that we have in the state of Oregon. But in terms of prevention, I'd say the biggest success so far to this day in the last couple of weeks has been that the collaborative, we had a presentation on the prevention definition, and it was then presented to the subcommittee for the substance use prevention for the ADPC, Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission, and it was discussed, ironed out, and then it was presented to the commission. And so now they have a one liner on their, the one liner for prevention there that is really kind of in line with the definition. So it's really helpful to have that it be in place. And that was just the work that was done to try to help align the state of Oregon with a prevention definition in a common language across the board. So it was a really good thing, a lot of good work done. And I just, in terms of prevention, I think, you know, we're going to start seeing more funding. We're going to start seeing more peer supports across the board. It's kind of a little bit started already in terms of prevention across the board in schools. I do keep in touch with some of the school districts, particularly one of the largest ones, Portland Public Schools. I have a meeting next week to talk with the addictions people. They've done a really good job. I've never seen it before, but they've hired 3 alcohol and drug ADs counselors level 2 that are doing the 0.5, which is the education prevention piece, and 0.1 treatment level there within the schools by the 3 alcohol and drug counselors that they hired, which is a really good thing. I think that's a really positive. Trying to align also with some of the organizations, nonprofits, to try to provide more peer support and more community-based referrals for the higher levels that are needed for level 2 for outpatient, and that referral process. So a lot of the schools are doing some really good things in terms of bringing in more SUD. I think we need a lot more. I want to now talk, I may come back a little bit to prevention, but I want to talk a little bit, just kind of overview also with the harm reduction efforts that I've been involved with for the past several months due to the situation that everyone here knows about, the fentanyl epidemic that we're seeing. You know, trying to bring in Narcan to all the schools within the state of Oregon has been kind of spotty. I did connect with a group of people from OHA to try to work through, actually it was the intent was to try to do, bring in more prevention to the schools, but because of the fentanyl crisis that we were seeing several months back, it sort of turned and morphed into this collaborative with ODE to try to help bring in more Narcan within the schools, and came up with the toolkit that is in the ODE website for a lot of resources about information on Narcan, information on harm reduction, information on how to obtain Narcan for free for the schools. And I connected with what's it called? Emergent Biosolutions, that was based out in Boston, I believe. And they were providing free Narcan to high schools only at the time. That was several months back. Then they try to send to middle schools as well. And then most recently, they transferred that Narcan distribution to Direct Relief, which is based out in Santa Barbara, California. And so that's the Direct Relief is the one that's providing now Narcan to the schools. They'll provide Narcan to schools, to YMCAs, and to public libraries for free. And so making those connections to try to bring Narcan into Oregon schools, it was an effort that was, like I said, between OHA and ODE. There's still quite a bit of need for that. I did get a call from the schools out in Eastern Oregon, like Hermiston and Pendleton. They actually brought in Narcan to all their schools within those two areas, and they actually purchased some of the Narcan to be able to have enough, and to the lower, elementary schools and the Head Starts as well. And so again, Oregon still needs some work in terms of getting Narcan within the schools. Some of the barriers for obtaining Narcan for some of the schools could be that outright they need more information and they just don't want Narcan in there, and or they don't have somebody to sign off, like a pharmacist or a medical doctor, to sign off on the form to obtain the Narcan. So those are some of the barriers, or they may not have a policy. The school district may not have a policy and needs to draft up a policy. So those are just some of the barriers of why some of the schools aren't able to get Narcan, or in the process of getting them, as we see more and more overdoses happen for young kids within the schools. We've had quite a few. I think in the news I saw just yesterday that there were a couple of high school kids that were that OD'd on fentanyl, and that was in California. And so they're making efforts to get into those schools there as well. So anyway, that's, the efforts for harm reduction. I kind of feel a little bit sad that we have to deal with the harm reduction, because when you look at the spectrum, the universal spectrum of where it starts with promotion and prevention, it moves to prevention for selected, indicated, to treatment, to recovery. When we're dealing on the harm reduction, we're actually on that cusp of between prevention and treatment, when really, if more work was done on promotion and prevention, we wouldn't be needing to be there. But unfortunately, that's where Oregon is at right now, trying to deal with the fentanyl epidemic that we're seeing, and it's unfortunate. So, I think that there's more that needs to be done in the state of Oregon. I would like to say, just as a preventionist, I know that the culture, or as a preventionist, which I consider myself, we know that culture is going to change, and those of us that are preventionists can really shape how the human culture habits can be influenced to reduce, substance use, especially alcohol use. And prevention is prevention. It cuts across many groups, cultures. I would say, the most challenging probably is for the LGBTQ+2, which deal with social stressors that other groups probably do not, or are impacted with prevention, but might need something more to help this group. But prevention is prevention, and it does cut across many groups and cultures. This is why I believe so strongly in it. We need to look also, I think, most importantly, when we're talking about prevention, we need to really look here in the state of Oregon look at the risk factors more closely, especially within historical trauma. Or as an example, that I can kind of come up with is like, we drop the keys in the dark alley, but we look for them in the street because the lighting is way better. We need to stop doing prevention that way. We need to get into the dark alley. We need to look at historical traumas. We need to deal with prevention and have an impact in the state of Oregon. I think one of the things that I see the most is more advertisement. The alcohol industry, the pharmacology industry as well. They do a lot of spend billions of dollars in advertisements. I think we need to have more shows, more movies, more advertisements that depict responsible drinking, as opposed to advertisements that motivate for more drinking. And more importantly, we need to change the culture of how one perceives a person that does not drink. That's I think what's most important as well. But Oregon right now, the reason why I mentioned the fentanyl and Rethink campaign is because those two are probably the only, especially the Rethink campaign is probably the first and only big campaign for the state of Oregon to help reduce the use of alcohol and the problems that we see within our youth with the use of alcohol. And then the fentanyl education campaign is something that I think we're kind of behind, but hopefully, that'll get off and going for educating more families and youth around the dangers of fentanyl. And I think we're going to still see a lot more sad situations within our state until we can begin to create more prevention and more efforts to try to combat this epidemic with the fentanyl situation. So anyway, prevention, is big for me. Treatment, we need a lot of work. Harm reduction is happening, and so I think kind of trying to give you a bit of an overview of the situation here in the state of Oregon and the continuing work that needs to happen. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but I think it can be done. Working together. I'd like to right now maybe share a couple slides just to show you some numbers, and it's just to show you, kind of like, am I able to share, Sam, my screen?
Yes, you should have the availability to share your screen. It should be the green button in the center.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I have not been monitoring anything on the chat, so I haven't really looked. I was just kind of focusing on speaking. So sure. I don't know if there were questions or anything, but
would you like to go over those now, or would you like to wait until after the slides?
Can you tell me what they were? I mean, I'm just kind of scrolling. Did you see anything standing out for questions or?
So it looks like we have a couple comments, although Roberta Lincoln, kind of at the top of your talk, she was saying that she was not I don't understand, where are all the staff? Was there a mass exodus from Oregon?
Where are all the staff? Mass exodus? I don't know how to answer that, but I can tell you that I feel like there's been an influx. I mean, when I got hired, my team has grown exponentially. And then I've seen others that I was working with also been hired recently. And so I don't know, is there anyone like Chelsea or Jesse or anyone here that can answer that? Or
so you were talking about all the different residential facilities programs that closed because there was no staff.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, not necessarily closed because there was no staff. There's a shortage of staff everywhere, restaurants, medical world, residential treatment facilities. The workforce issue has been an ongoing issue for some programs, not so much so for, like, say, Madrona or NARA, because they're closer proximity to a metropolitan high population areas where they're easier to hire or people apply for. But there's also the training that needs to happen when people are coming in fresh, if they're in the field starting new. but it's the rural programs that are struggling more so, and it's in a different way of staff. Like, for example, like Sept is dealing with not being able to, I mean, they are able to get some alcohol and drug counselors. It's just the cost of living and all that, and then trying to find affordable housing in some of these smaller town rural areas is an issue. The other programs is dealing more with the milieu staff, trying to obtain staff, and then when they do get a milieu staff, sometimes they're very green, so they need to train them. And then COVID on top of that makes it really complicated because either staff, I mean, I know that Madrona went through 3 rounds back to back where they didn't have to isolate youths, or staff can come into work because of that. And so then the numbers drop in terms of intakes. You know, they have so many beds, but then they can only fill so many because they only have so much staff available. And realistically, the treatment facilities cannot, you know, keep functioning this way without the help from the state that has been providing them with assistance due to COVID. But you know, when some of that assistance goes away, the agencies will not be able to survive or keep their doors open on their own. And so that's the workforce situation. Now there are efforts to try to help with that. You know, there was a presentation done at the collaborative from Craig Mosbeck on the wage study that was being conducted in the state of Oregon. He came back and did a report out, and so there's that to try to raise the compensation for some of these programs to be able to hire and keep staff and hire qualified staff. There's other efforts as well. I'm sure you're probably aware of it, with U of O purchasing the campus over here by Concordia University and Portland to try to all behavioral health, basically, to have people come in and enroll and major in these behavioral health fields to try to bring more workforce into Oregon and into some of these facilities, both outpatient, residential, and I would say even prevention as well. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah, go ahead, Nakobe.
Yeah, so just kind of adding on to what Bernardino said about just the overall kind of mental health crisis, especially with youth and families throughout the state of Oregon. I know Dr. Wolf had sent me some really great articles about this. But in terms of workforce, there are teams at OHA who are working on workforce initiatives, different ways of really building the capacity of folks who are wanting to get into this work, how we retain the folks that we have right now, how we're able to really work on kind of that wage gap and incentivizing wage increases for culturally specific folks who are going into this field. And when I say culturally specific, I'm also talking about rural and frontier counties and spaces that may have folks who don't have many of the individuals who are in these positions who leave come back, right? Or positions that are open, but how are we building that capacity? Also thinking about kind of the upcoming work with the peer respite centers. I love that you mentioned Craig Mosbeck, but there's a lot of work being done on our end at OHA to really figure out what's going on, how we can retain folks, what types of ways that we could put our resources into building that capacity, not only of being able to hire individuals, but being able to make sure that we are able to support their growth, both professionally, with their mental health. I know that Bernardino's had some great conversations with our team, the Office of Recovery and Resilience. We work in all things peer delivered services, and really going and talking to peer staff and organizations and seeing what they're needing support in. And so I guess, as Jesse put, it is a huge question. and there are workforce shortages and crises throughout the state, especially in the mental health field. And we have a lot of teams of folks who are working to address that and really get to kind of the core holistic experience of the mental health crisis with youth and families and adults, certification of folks in the workforce, and also making sure that we're able to retain the folks that we do have and ensure that their mental wellness is really at the core front, so they can continue to provide these really important services to youth and young adults. And I know that there's also a lot of efforts going on in schools and school-based health centers to really start reaching out to youth and young adults, and especially youth and young adults who may need, again, that specific cultural representation when it comes to in-school therapy, or when it comes to the type of resources that youth and young adults are stating that they're needing, and really asking them, what is it that you need in schools to be supported, and what are the types of resources that you're looking for. So I'll leave it to, it looks like Jesse, but I just wanted to say that it's a big question, but I hope it gives a little faith in us that there are a lot of folks and a lot of teams working together to make sure that we are supporting our youth, our young adults, our family members, and folks who are actively in recovery.
Yeah, thank you, Nakobe, for adding that piece in. But yeah, I just, you know, I think maybe it would be good to show you some of the slides. It's just a little bit of information. It's nothing really formal. I just wanted to share to give people. Sam, am I able to share my screen?
Oh, you certainly are. You do have two hands raised.
Oh,
We have
okay.
we have Jesse Egan and then Grace Bullock.
Okay, go ahead, Jesse, and then Grace.
I wasn't sure. I kind of put my hand back down again. I'm not sure I can say anything better than Nakobe already did, but I guess when I start thinking about some of these workforce issues, I think everything that Nakobe said is absolutely true. We are really working hard on the OHA side to try to do everything we can to both support the workforce that's working now, but also to try to build in kind of that pipeline for new people coming into the field for all of behavioral health. So on the substance use side and on the mental health side, and there's just not enough people. And I think the one thing that I always kind of try to keep in mind as well is it's really easy, I think, for those of us who work in behavioral health, particularly for young people and families, to feel like it's just us and sort of say like, oh my gosh, like what's happening to our system? But I also, my partner works at OHSU, and there's many openings there. And I don't know that I've left the house without seeing help wanted signs in pretty much everywhere I go. So I try to kind of keep that in perspective a little bit, because I want to make sure that we are doing what we can to support children and family behavioral health. And that is what we are committed to doing. And I also try to kind of take the pressure off of us a little bit and think like we are also working in the world that is struggling with workforce issues kind of across the board. And so it's a huge question. And I think there's a lot of work to do, both within our field and then broadly, if that makes sense. I'll pass it to Grace.
Yeah, Grace.
Thanks, Jesse. I thank you, Nakobe, for that very eloquent description of the terrain, and Jesse for your follow-up. I'm not sure if folks are aware that this is something that we've been very heavily involved in and working on at the Oregon Department of Education as well. And we were just recently awarded a 5-year, $5.4 million grant from SAMHSA for Project Aware, which is building upon our existing $5.4 million initiative that's focused very specifically on building mental health and behavioral health workforce capacity in school communities to serve not only youth and their families, but also school staff and school leaders. And so our main priority is really thinking about, and I want to give Chelsea credit where credit is due here, because we've been having this ongoing conversation, not only about fortifying the behavioral health workforce, but also thinking about how can we very intentionally connect families with their local systems of care, and how can we integrate systems of care with the behavioral health workforce. And so this initiative, and I'll put the link in the chat here so you can read all about it, is really designed to strengthen and fortify school-based mental health along a lot of fronts. We have a legislative concept that will hopefully make it to the legislature next fall to bring this work into statute and hopefully get funding for an expansion. Also want to shout out to Arden Robinette, who is in my bottom hand corner of my screen, who is a tremendously important partner in all of this work, and also our leadership at ODE, who's made all this work possible. And also our partnership with Chelsea and all of her team. Actually, I don't see her whole team, but many of her team and partners that we work with, and Annette around the suicide prevention pieces. So this really is a big lift, and it's very much a community effort. And we have met with Bernardino and others, because we do want to very intentionally integrate substance use prevention into this conversation. So more to come, but I do want to echo what you did say, Nakobe, and that there is a lot of work and momentum, and we have a lot to do and a long way to go. But I think that it is encouraging that there's so much here that is happening. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Appreciate it. Thank you everyone for your comments. I guess if I'm able to share, let me see. Scott, I may need your help.
It should be in the center of the screen on the bottom.
Right. No, I am, but let's see. I'm trying to find my presentation. Darn it. Okay, give me 1 sec here. Okay. Maybe that will help. Just share screen. Okay, there it is. I'm going to put it in presentation mode.
Perfect.
Let me know. Do you just see the screen, or do you see the other notes?
I don't see notes, but it's not full screen yet.
Not full screen yet?
No, sir.
It's showing full screen on mine.
That is a fun little trick that it plays on you. You might want to go back to share screen and then select the presentation screen.
Okay, 1 second here, because I got 2 screens and now my cursor is not moving. Okay, wait. Let me end show. Yeah, maybe I don't know here. So you're saying click what?
So have you already gone to slideshow and done presentation? You can also send these to me if you, yes, exactly. Go to slideshow. You were just on it.
So slideshow first, and then now share.
All right. I think if you go to display settings, because we're seeing the other slide on the right now, but we're almost there.
So where do I go? I'm so sorry.
Display settings on the top. It's in the middle. A little higher.
Display settings.
I see where your cursor is. Go up. Go to the top of the screen and display settings.
I don't see display settings, and I'm so sorry, people.
Oh,
we can still see
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Is everyone comfortable? Can everyone see things clearly?
Slide control. No. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead. It's just a couple slides. So I apologize everyone for the delay here. Sorry for my tech challenges. Anyway, I just thought I'd provide an overview and a discussion with everyone here, not necessarily a really kind of formal presentation, but I just thought I'd share just some some information. So when I got hired a year ago, I actually reached out to the Health Systems Division business office, and I wanted to get some data around what does the state of Oregon look like, the 36 counties that Oregon State has. What does it look like in terms of substance use among youths ages 12 to 18? And they gave me this information. I picked out of the 36, mostly just the 7 top highest amounts. And this is intakes, admissions into residential treatment facilities, substance use disorder, and mental health. And you can see it's alcohol. In 2020, there were this amount of intakes due to alcohol, or they identified a substance use disorder. Crack cocaine, these are the numbers that you see for marijuana, and then and other stimulants as well as opiates. So these are intakes into residential treatment and mental health facilities for youth ages 12 to 18. And these are the highest counties in terms of the out of the 36. I went ahead and then changed it into a graph just as a visual. And you can see that just by looking at this is basically the numbers looking at it into like a graph. You can see here the marijuana in 2020 for Marion County. That's how many were reported. Where it was Lane County and then Douglas County coming in over here in second place in 2020. Alcohol, you can see Lane County at the highest. And then amphetamine also, if you look at it, methamphetamine for Lane County and Marion County for youths 12 to 18. And so I just thought I'd share this information just to give people a little overview of youths within 2020 and what it looks like for intakes. There was a significant drop during COVID with intakes, and that was because closures, people not referring kids to treatment, and that was so for the 2019 was pretty low, and that was due to COVID. Here for 2021, you can see the numbers, and they do fluctuate. Probably in December, toward December, I'll ask for the 2022 to see what it looks like. But I just thought it would be important for me to just kind of get a view of what it looks like across the state of Oregon for substance use for youth. And we use those parameters of admissions into treatment facilities, and then looking at the parameters of 12 to 18. And then I actually asked for the young adults as well, from the 19 to 25, what it looks like. And then just out of curiosity, recently I asked for from 18 to age 65, what that looks like as well. Here's what the graph looks like for 2021. You can see that marijuana dropped for Marion County, but increased for Washington County. And then alcohol drops significantly for the other counties for Marion, but then Washington County seems like there was a spike. So with this information, I think it's helpful for me just to see what it looks like county to county, and then seeing what kind of prevention efforts can be done, and then also looking closely at what kind of treatment could be looked at in terms of appropriateness for level of care if needed, and what the gaps are, which the report from the inventory will shed more light on that. This, I just thought it would be important just to show the number of percentages of Oregon Health Plan members with a documented use disorder diagnosis in 2020. Like over half the age 20 to 17 population in the state of Oregon are on OHP and have a substance use disorder. That becomes roughly to be about 2,637 of the members, which make up 1.7% of the total population. And then the 18 to 25 percentages of population OHP is 36.6 of the overall population, and that makes it identified those that are on the OHP and substance use disorder identified as about 8,770 people, making 5.7% of the population. Those that are on OHP. I just thought I'd show you some numbers to give you an idea what it looks like for the state of Oregon. And so this I just thought was interesting information that came out of MACBO. Oregon is first 4% of population with illicit drug use disorder. Second for a percent of population experiencing substance use disorder in the past year. Fifth for alcohol use disorder, and last for the capacity to meet treatment needs. And then here I just thought I'd pose some questions just to kind of get some perhaps discussion going or talk here amongst us to figure out, you know, maybe what could be helpful for me or maybe just some advice from everyone here to try to maybe take this information and be able to utilize it and, you know, be able to come up with some strategies as well, working with other folks to try to, you know, continue working on this need for improving our systems of care. So how can we, or how would it look like to incorporate more substance use disorder peer supports within schools and their surrounding community? You know, what kind of supports would you see as useful as youth leave residential treatment programs? And then how can we improve the systems that are in place to link youth with substance use disorders or co-occurring use disorders and mental health diagnosis to appropriate services? So that's kind of the questions I just kind of wanted to bring forward to this group with hope of generating some dialogue. Anyway, I think that was about it. Should I stop sharing, or I guess I could cut paste these questions in the chat too.
I think you can keep sharing those questions for the group for now. Does anyone have any comments on those questions? If you'd like to raise your hand, or you can just go ahead and speak if you would prefer. So it looks like Nakobe, go ahead.
Yeah, now I just would like to kind of like pose a question to just community members and family members and kind of see how they're feeling about this information and kind of what feelings those bring up or any reflections that they've had during the presentation. So just wondering if any community voice is wanting to kind of give just like some feelings about the information that you've heard, because I know it's been a lot, and it is like it's a topic that is really hitting all of our youth and families these days.
Just a note for youth and family members, if you'd rather not speak yourself, you are welcome to direct message me in the chat and I will pose the question or comment for you. And it's Sam Haskins. Beth, you have your hand up?
Yes, and I know that I've contacted you before, Bernardino. We've talked before, I think by email, but in my personal experience with kids I've worked with, there was a problem with, let's say the child had a marijuana issue where they were using daily, and parents get them into a group treatment. And it's there that they find out that they could use heroin or fentanyl and it would be out of their system way quicker than the marijuana, you know, and they meet those people in there that are already using that. So it's a mixed group. Anyway, that was a problem I've seen, and we talked before. I wondered how that was being addressed because I've seen it in several cases over the years.
Yeah, I remember the conversation, and I actually feel that has been an ongoing issue for quite some time for me in my work as well, seeing it with other programs. You know, a couple of programs shut down because of that. not being able to manage it, where kids go, parents like want to take their kids to treatment. They go, oh, we need help. And then they go get an assessment. They give them a placement of level of care, whether it be level 1 or level 2, more intense treatment, and then also they're put in these groups where they have other kids with other substance use, whether it be opiates or methamphetamine, and then the kid that was placed in there was just a marijuana user, and then all of a sudden, they like peers, they make friends or whatever, and then they get introduced to other drugs outside of treatment. And that's usually the way it works. I think one of the that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of the therapists, counselors that are working within the substance world. But I also seen some very, very good therapists who are able to manage that. And I think the problem happens when you have, therapists that are coming in that are still need more development. And then they're doing, this happens, and it's unfortunate. I just feel that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of also looking at the models that we're using, like the residential treatment programs are functioning under models that are outdated. We need to look at the models of how we do the treatment. Again, I go back to the big push is prevention. The more prevention that we do, the numbers would go down in terms of the need for those kinds of treatments. More education for parents. This is why I talked about, early parent education that includes more SUD. This is why we brought in from Oregon State University, Dr. Tomine, to come and talk and help, elevate more of the substance use within parent training. And I think the models, like Rimrock is interesting because they've actually closed due to COVID and workforce issues. So they reopened up recently, but then when they reopened up, they opened up also introducing a new model, which is actually challenging, but it's actually very good that they've started that way. Hopefully they can stay open with the collaborative problem solving model. Some of these agencies are working still with like the level system that are kind of outdated as well for behavior management. So, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I think the models need to be looked at too. And so that is an ongoing issue, Beth, in terms of, outpatient, and then having a really strong therapist that are able to manage that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was there more questions in the chat, Sam?
We have 2 comments. Grace said that part of the issue as well is the ratio of therapists to youth. Social contagion is far more likely in environments where youth interactions are not monitored. And Roxanne made a comment that I just wish things didn't have to get so bad before systems started acting on the pleas from the youth and families needed changes. I'm hoping we can maybe learn and grow to be more preventative to reduce the need to always be reacting to crises.
Yeah, thank you. One last comment I think for me is, when you're looking at outpatient and therapist and youth use, I think there also needs to be a bit more caution in trying to make the groups more homogeneous. And what I mean by is like those that are meth using should be just a kind of a group of that, not mixing them up. But it does become very difficult when you have limited amount of workforce staff and then a high amount of youth needing treatment. And so I do believe that the number of youth, just like in education in classrooms, you fill a classroom full of 35 kids, compared to 27 or 25 or 22, it's going to have an impact on their education. And again, outpatient is really about learning skills and the challenges that we have with youths nowadays. We have a lot of kids that are, developmentally challenged, and it's very difficult to have them sometimes grasp some of the concepts and it just sometimes may not work. And so I just wanted to mention that too. We see some hands up.
We do. We first have Annette, and then Chrissy, and then Jamie.
Okay, let's go in that order.
Thank you. That took me by surprise. I didn't know I was going to get called on. So, yeah, thank you. I guess, Bernardino, a couple of things I've been thinking a lot about. One, I just want to say that I'm somebody who's in recovery from one substance, and it doesn't mean I don't struggle with addiction in other ways. And I just think that as adults, we need to normalize that conversation for folks, that we can change our behaviors. We can change. That doesn't mean that we're not going to still struggle with things, but anyhow, so that's one thing I want to say. But I just was so struck by the numbers that you shared, and it really made me think about the power of that Rethink campaign and how we need to integrate our messaging across substance abuse, child welfare, behavioral health. And I really focus on that piece around connection, because I'm just really convinced that analysis that a lot of our addictive behavior is a response to isolation and trauma, and I think so that when you think prevention, thinking something like sources of strength that actually builds communities and connections, or the work where Youth Era does, that may not actually be spending a ton of focus talking directly about the substances, are so important. And I just really want to see us integrate our efforts. And so I'm super excited. And I'm also really, I just want to say out loud to this group that I'm noticing, Bernardino, when you said all those names to me, I didn't know any of those names. And I thought, well, that really says something about how much I'm like siloed in ways I don't even recognize. And I think that happens to a lot of us.
Yes.
So thanks.
Yeah. And working in silos is what I see a lot of too within the state. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to kind of break through. And this is why I talk about collaboration. One of the reasons why I also felt it was important to really work closely with the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission and work the collaborative as if an arm for them to be able to bring recommendations like the prevention definition, which is now in line. So now we can, successfully say, like, if we see something not happening and that is in line, we can now go to the policy commission and say, hey, here's your statement on prevention, let's align it. So I think the base right now, what I feel is successful for the state of Oregon with this 1 year of work is that we have a definition, we have a base. We need to start building now the structure for bringing us back to being, first in the nation, hopefully again, like we were 20 years ago.
And before the next person goes, Annette had earlier put a question in the chat about, Bernardino, who is the person you consider the top preventionist in Oregon?
We actually talked about that earlier.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, the addiction prevention section from the Oregon Public Health Association, which is a group of people that meet on a monthly basis, the executive leadership team. Who's next?
Yes, Bernardino. Hi, it's Chrissy. So the perspective I kind of wanted to bring this morning, this is an interesting topic because we just covered it in a training that I was facilitating. But from the perspective of like the youth that either I've worked with or some of my staff have worked with, and this is through the perspective of wraparound, but they've come out of treatment centers, the youth have, and overwhelming percent of youth have named their experience of being in the treatment center, getting treatment, feeling better, feeling ready to kind of transition back into their life, but finding that while they're in a center, outside, nothing is changing. The home isn't changing, school isn't changing, the friend group isn't changing, so I think it's really, I like how Kobe called in community, because it's a public health issue in so many ways, and it's a cultural issue. Like when we really look at our youth, our middle school and our high schoolers, like drug use all around has really been embedded into our culture now, whether it's our music, what our friends are doing, whether it's things that we're seeing on television, like it just absorbs into us and becomes like a part of our life. And I think like our community really has to kind of take the stand. And I think what I'm noticing like over my time of being kind of like in this field of work, and it's really a personal opinion, but I'm noticing like the more that we have the systems continuing to try to be like, what are we supposed to do? Our youth and our family are finding their own routes. And I think the huge struggle coming from the system of care side is like, how do we invite who we're wanting to support? Like we're having the conversation continuously. There's so many spaces I've been in now that we're having the convo. Our hearts are in the right place, but the table is not set. Like the invitation is not out there. There's not a real space right now where you're having the youth able to openly speak and be comfortable and feel seen and valued enough, right, to share exactly what they're needing. Like I've been in spaces where, Nakobe and we did this think tank, we had the support of OHA, and like in those spaces, we have youth telling us straight directly what they need to see. But then when we come back and we kind of report that out, sometimes it feels like that gets reported out and then where's like the change? Like where does it actually get applied? Where do we actually see the difference in meeting time? Where do we actually see like the challenge of taking down like the power dynamic? Where do we see the holistic approaches that youth are asking for? Youth are really into these more, I guess you would say, like holistic approaches, like these art therapies and music and yoga, and like getting away from needing to go into an office to talk about their problems, because no matter what, that's going to have like a stigma to them. It's going to have like this feeling of I can't be authentic there. And that I feel like is like our biggest takeaway is like, okay, if folks really do, I don't think anybody intentionally, I mentioned Gabor Mate in the chat, because for those, and even for me, I consider myself in recovery. When you're using to meet some type of need for yourself. And for our young people, I feel like there's not a lot of education right now to teach them how to assess what is that need. What is that wound that you've experienced? How are you healing past that? And I feel like we as the leaders, if you will, like we as the leaders, we need to kind of come away from the spaces that we've been holding forever and start to have a more communal, space where like we're inviting the community to come and talk to us. But we're also, the only way that that's going to happen realistically is if we take down the barrier that this is like a professional perspective. Like we have to come at it from a perspective of come and just be in the space with us, come and just break bread with us, come and just have music and art with us, and then let's have a natural conversation about this. Oh, here, you're experiencing addiction. Let's have this person come and do a talk so that you can learn from it. It's got to be like a mutually beneficial thing. I think TikTok and social media is so works so well because it feeds into something. So like if I'm going on social media, if I'm a youth and I'm seeking support and I'm wanting to look at something to help me with the fact that I am experiencing addiction, I just did like some research about SEOs and like the search engine optimization, and TikTok is beating Google now. And what's happening is these youth are going there and they're searching literally for these things because they feel like they can't go to a teacher. They feel like they can't go to their parent. They can't go to a counselor and say, I'm really addicted. So they're going literally to TikTok. You can look this up, you can research this. They're searching in there what to do when I'm feeling what I can't quit taking pills, or I'm stealing my mom's medication. Like they do want the support and they're going to where they know they can go without like judgment, because a TikTok algorithm can't judge you. But so it's like, if we know that, then it's like, how do we address that? How do we address that they won't come to other spaces. Why? What is the why behind that? And how do we change that so that we become a space that they can come to, if that makes sense? So I just wanted to kind of open the conversation a little bit around that and think about that community aspect that Nakobe talked about in that youth perspective that they're experiencing.
Yeah, thank you, Chrissy. I really appreciate your comments and your thoughts. I just want to I'll go back to you, Nakobe. I just want to say one thing, that yeah, I think that one of the things that is the youth voice is extremely important. That's something that perhaps needs to happen more. I know the site review that I went over to do at Rimrock a couple months ago, they started with the new program with the collaborative opened up with a new program with a new behavior management system, which is called the collaborative problem solving, that incorporates a lot of the youth voice within that treatment facility. A lot of the treatment facilities, again, are outdated. They need to be revamped. But changing from one model of behavior to another is also very challenging. But I think the youth voice is extremely important. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, Nakobe. Oh, and one last comment, Dr. Wolf, I will be forwarding those slides to Sam to send out to the whole group. So thank you for requesting those, Dr. Wolf. Nakobe?
And I just want to, as somebody who came from Youth Era and who worked very closely with Chrissy on and even does on, and Lev especially with OHA and the kids team, I do want to say now that I'm on this side, like those spaces that we have been able to create with youth and young adults, I mean, even around things like system of care, which like notoriously has had a hard time with youth and young adult voice and youth and young adult presence. But once we had that opportunity, once Chelsea was like, yes, Lev, Nakobe, do this, and Chrissy is on board and creating those specific types of spaces, we had more young people being able to speak candidly about this information. We had Chelsea join in on some of ours and the art projects, which really helped kind of like remove that, almost like this barrier that Chrissy was just mentioning, that professional, this is not our space, this is not a place where we can be vocal and talk about what it is that we need. And then also having Chelsea and Steve, even with our peer think tank series that we had 3 of, and folks are still asking when we're going to do it again. And so I guess what I'm asking this group is how can we, because again, like Chrissy and I could put our heads together and create a space that is beautiful where we can have youth expressing what it is they need in a meaningful way that does not cause harm. And I promise you, we have pulled together stuff within a week before that was beautiful. And again, in spaces that already are grounded in equity, like the think tanks that Chrissy was mentioning, we don't even need to say, how are we going to find diversity? Because it's already there, because we already know that the youth have power. We don't give the youth power. We like uplift the power that they already have and really help them harness it. And so what I'm hoping for is that, yes, we're listening to numbers. Yes, we're in these spaces and folks are talking about solutions. No, I don't see a single youth here right now in this space, and even in a lot of our internal meetings. But if we are able to, again, like have those resources, Chrissy and I put our heads together, and once there is a new person at Youth Era, and again, I want to shout out to Shannon, who has stepped in hardcore to really also bring youth voice, and Michelle Owens, who's not here today. But if we can put our heads together and really have some backing and some accountability that this is going to be something that is utilized moving forward, and that the data that we gather, those youth voices that we have, can and will be not only welcome in this space, but have a space of their own, we can get that direct feedback in a really beautiful, productive community building way right now. And so I just want to, again, like reiterate what Chrissy said and say, like, yes, youth are here. They know exactly what it is that they need. They know where they're searching for what they need. It's all on TikTok and social media, but also we have folks like, again, Shannon and Chrissy and Michelle and myself in this space who are able to create those spaces. We just need that accountability and backing and follow through that young people's voices are going to be heard. And when they do come to the table and spaces like this, that these spaces also are here and receptive and can really give that, yes, we hear what you're saying. This is how we are going to integrate this into policy or legislative concepts or different investments in different programs, or even building capacity in programs, community-based organization, and again, those culturally specific resources that are so needed right now.
Yeah, thank you, Nakobe. Culturally specific and linguistically specific too. Yeah, thank you for your comments. Who was next here with their hands?
Jamie has been waiting very patiently, and she is next. And after her, we'll have Dr. Wolf.
Okay, Jamie.
No worries. I'll be pretty quick because the two rock stars that went before me, the only thing I was just going to add that peer services, I think, make a lot of sense, especially with your numbers, looking at the 12 to 17-year-olds, where we need to be creating these spaces in schools, around schools, next to schools, and really integrating and an increase in peer services and getting, youth peer recovery support specialists out into the schools, I think would be a really great idea to see if we can begin to not only create some of these spaces where young people have to go to be seen, to be heard, to be supported, to be understood, but also breaking down the barriers between, some of that formalized services. Oftentimes when we're working with youth, they're in this place where they know, like, they've got some unmet needs happening and they're doing things that they're starting to think maybe this is a problem, or I don't want to do this anymore, but maybe aren't ready to jump into an entire inpatient program, for example, but are in the right place to work with the peer around it. So I'm just voting for increase in peer services. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've been speaking a lot about that in terms of peer support services, not only being within the schools, but in the perimeter around the schools where kids can go and feel safe and get that support. No need to travel across town to go to a facility to get that support, which makes it, transportation sometimes a challenge for them, or weather inclementation that also prevents them from going there. So yeah, thank you for those comments. And Dr. Wolf?
Yeah, Bernardino, excellent presentation. Substance use is such an important risk factor for death by suicide. Let me ask this. When I became involved in Oregon's youth suicide prevention efforts in the 1990s, we were able to get a youth suicide prevention coordinator. Long and short of it, we had such a big problem with youth suicide that one position was not enough. And we've been able to expand it, which has made some important difference. Are you in this by yourself with the state? Do you have anybody else that does similar work that you do?
In terms of substance use or the suicide?
Substance use.
Within the state, yeah. Well, there's other teams that are addiction teams, but within the team that I am with the child family behavioral health, I believe I'm the only one within this unit.
I would just have our state give serious consideration to having a second person, because I think when you're going at this alone, I mean, that's incredibly difficult work. And I think if there was an additional person, you could tag team and probably be that much more.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wolf. When I first started this position, the title was Youth and Young Adult Program and Policy Coordinator, and I did feel like it was just a bit too much dealing with youth and then young adults. I think recently, and Chelsea probably can answer this better than I can, or Jesse, I think recently we hired a young adult person within our team that would be helping. But I've been reaching out to, the Office of Recovery and Resiliency. I've been working with other addictions people within OHA that, that provide some support when, answer questions when I have questions, or But the groups that I've been working with, mostly within OHA, like I said, the hip cadet people for that do a lot of upstream prevention inside across the state. I work with them as well. So there are other people, but within my unit right now, I think it's myself and the young adult person. We also have Kendall Burns, who, as a matter of fact, was also my co-chair and did a fabulous job with the collaborative. So big shout out to her. She's been recently hired with OHA. I don't know if anybody else has anything more that can chime in.
It's tough to go at things alone, and I know you do a great job of partnering, but when there's more than one person, it just it helps to develop momentum, and that's what we need in our state, quite honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I would add to that, Kurt, because part of it is that there's no financial investments attached to this position. So we have no money for this position to do anything with. So I think that's part of it, and the hope of this collaboration and this group to look toward the 2025 session, that if we have a policy option package and have clear direction on where we want to go with the ADPC plan and the work that we do, I think additional positions would make sense. I think it would be hard to justify to the legislature at this point because we don't have a built out plan specific to any investments. We were able to secure some one-time SAP grant funding that Bernardino and his collaboration are going to be working towards investment. He talked about that at the beginning. But I want to highlight what you said is that most of the team members on our unit are single subject matter experts, and it is incredibly lonely. We have heard that loud and clear from my team, that it is incredibly lonely to be a subject matter expert in the children's system and feel the responsibility to make all that change happen. So it's really a both and for me. I could probably clone or triple the positions on my team with the work that we should be doing to support the children's system. One last thing is that we have a new adult behavioral health director, Jessie Benet, who is very interested in really bringing together the work we're doing, using young adults as our sort of common overlap. But he's very aware that all the children's system policy and programs we do impact adults and vice versa. So we have to stop thinking so separate that we make adult substance use disorder decisions around investments and training and policy and program without thinking of the impact it has to do with the children of those adults, and then vice versa. So yes, and just wanted to add that really quick.
Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate it.
No.
We have one, Roxanne's hands up.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to share something that my husband and I have realized. I'm sure a lot of people have, but he is a recovery mentor for Provoking Hope, certified recovery mentor. And one thing we have identified through personal experience and also through the work that we do, me with the therapeutic school and him with addiction recovery, is that a lot of the systems and a lot of the services that are out there are, like I was saying in the chat, reactionary, and their reactions to crises that come up. The problem with that is that, hold on. Sorry, they're having class in the next room. The problem with that is that it's like it's a Band-Aid, and if there's wounds underneath that Band-Aid that are festering with infection, and so like as somebody with lived experience, my oldest son, he was experiencing traumatic situations, and there was no access to someone who had extensive experience that he needed to process complex trauma with the insurance that he had. And we didn't have the $150 or more to pay per hour for him to go to get the trauma processing experienced, PSYDs that can really help him move the trauma from the area of the brain where he experiences every day to get the timestamp to move it to a different part of the brain. And he is now in the throes of serious addiction because he didn't have the access to the services he needed. And a human brain can only handle so much pain before they have to do something. And there was nothing that he could access that was healthy. And so he did what he started self-medicating to get an escape from that immense amount of pain that he just couldn't handle anymore. Not saying that that is obviously it's not a healthy way to escape, but it's a human response. And so now he's trying to get help, but everybody wants to help with the addiction, but nobody is actually trying to help with the trauma, the original trauma that led to the addiction. And so it's still festering underneath that Band-Aid, and he's not getting better. And he's not an isolated case. This happens all the time. And so the integration that you're talking about just makes me so excited that we're finally like really starting to realize that you really can't have these silos and help people and to get to a better place if you're just putting the Band-Aids and the wounds are festering underneath. And that's what's happening to a lot of people.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And this is why, I mean, Dr. Wolf brought it up, and it is a very tough job and a lot of work that needs to happen in the state of Oregon. And when I gravitate toward prevention a lot because we just undermined it for the last years. And again, we need to stop looking for the keys in the dark alley and we need to get to the historical traumas, looking at more closely and getting into the weeds of that. There was a link that Chelsea put in there for the co-occurring work disorders that is happening with an OHA. I also put a link in there of an article that I thought was informative just to share with people. That's a good read. And so I just thought I'd share with that. But thank you for your comments, Roxanne. Appreciate them. And yeah, and it is very tough. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in all levels, and there's a lot of gaps in services across the state of Oregon. So it is very difficult work.
I'm just really grateful. It gives me hope that at some point, him and people like him will be able to access the help they need to address the wound underneath the Band-Aids.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
I would just add that some of the feedback we've received around this is how the state and our rules and our reimbursement and our policies and statutes get in the way of all that you're talking about. And I've been really encouraged to see the work happening both at the legislative level and at the OHA level, really partnering with community to identify those areas and change them. And we've had incredible support to do so. And I just noted in the chat that while the focus on a lot of that work is currently around substance use disorder and mental health treatment, codes, reimbursement, licensing, all those things, that IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities and mental health is next. So not deprioritized, but just put in a sequence. And so that's been a focus of myself and this unit and this CSAC group as well. So just wanted to name that.
And we have a hand up, Nakobe.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody in this room, both just community members, folks in the field, and OHA staff, where we all bring our lived experiences to the table. And a lot of times it takes a lot of courage to talk about the things that are affecting us, the things that are affecting our children, the things that are affecting our loved ones, naming as a person with lived experience with a family member who is actively struggling in their addiction. I know, and as a young person, I know how deeply it impacts everyone's life. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody in this room who's doing that hard work. and folks who are also doing that hard work to share experiences in spaces like this and let you know that you're appreciated. And if you need to reach out post meeting for any support, just know that we're here. I can drop my email in the chat because I know that these kinds of things can be heavy. But again, so appreciate everything that folks are sharing and commenting on. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nakobe. Also, I think Chelsea dropped in my email. I guess it would be helpful for me if people wrote me an email as opposed to me trying to copy all these emails. I think I missed, but if you want more information about the collaborative coming up for the presentation on the inventory and SUD, it's going to be a really good presentation, a lot of valuable information that'll give a real good perspective of where we are in the state of Oregon in terms of services. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you for your comments, Nakobe.
And Bernardino, I'm happy to forward your email to everyone in the meeting, as well as some of the things that were discussed here today. But I can definitely get you everyone's email. And Kathleen put something in the chat. I think that was very interesting. Kathleen, may I call on you to read out what you discussed? Oh, I think you're on
Yep,
mute.
just trying to get unmuted. Thanks. Yes, I just wanted to put in a plug for prevention and early intervention around trauma. And I put in the chat the resource of Trauma Informed Oregon. I administer that contract, and if there's more they can and should be doing to support these ideas, please send me, and I also put my email down a few lines. Please send me a note about your ideas. Because we do have a lot of work to do, and they are supporting a lot of our work indirectly, and people tend to forget that they're there, but they're doing fantastic work that is culturally responsive and very relevant to a lot of this conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then we did have a comment from Roxanne Franklin Wilson that that she is looking for individuals to join the board of directors and to go ahead and contact her. And Roxanne, could you tell me what board of directors that is?
Yes, we are a Fifth Corner Academy, and we're a nonprofit organization that owns and operates a therapeutic alternative school for individuals experiencing mental health challenges, including anxiety, depression, up to and including suicidality, and coexisting conditions such as substance use disorder.
Do you have any more comments or feedback? I really appreciate everyone's comments and discussion. It's been really helpful to hear people's lived experiences and also you know, the information that you shared. So I look forward to hearing, you know, seeing the chat and you know, and you can reach out to me if you want to continue conversations or if you have any more dialogue. I think for me, lastly, I just want to emphasize, you know, I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to emphasize the importance of how we can shape how humans' culture habits can be influenced to reduce substance use by doing more prevention. And that's really how we can change our culture. And it's been, you know, kind of neglected for a long time, but you know, it does cut across, prevention does cut across many groups and cultures. And like I mentioned, you know, a little bit more work on specifically how we can help LGBTQ+2 communities. I'm a firm believer in that, and that's why I kind of gravitated and you know, and it was resounding at the collaboratives how much prevention we need to do and peer supports as well. So this is why I focus mostly on those areas. And so any, you know, any thoughts or recommendations or ideas that you may have, please reach out to me. But we're going to continue to chip away to try to make some changes here in our communities around the state of Oregon. But you know, with that said, I really don't have much more to offer you. I will be sending out the slides to Sam to forward it to everyone because you have the email. And I wish I had more information and more data for you, but I really didn't want to make it so formal, but kind of more informal in a discussion on this subject matter.
Thank you so much, Bernardino. That was really fantastic. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak to this group.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we can open up the floor for public comment. If anyone would like to, we can raise our hands and I will call on you in order. Is there anything that anyone would like to talk about today? We have about 30 minutes.
I'll just note that in the chat, I put a link to, and Sam can send this out with the minutes or whatever, but just all the requested investments that OHA will be making to the legislature in the 2023 session. And some of those are policy option packages that this group helped support the development of as we did our policy vision work in 2020 and 2021. And so you'll see one in there called the Children's Continuum of Care. And you can click on that, and that has the cross your fingers work that we all did together to fix some gaps and quality within the continuum. And then there is also a policy option package that is lifespan for children and adults around suicide prevention. So to continue funding the work of the Alliance and the annual plan that, or not annual, sorry, the 5-year plan Oregon has around youth suicide prevention, but also bringing investments and positions to the adult work as well. So there's lots of others. There's a development of a children's health unit in the Oregon Health Authority, which I'm very excited about. More people thinking about children in the organization is a good thing for all of us. And some other interesting things. So I just wanted to make sure I can share that more next month and talk about it more if people have interest. We are gearing up for our long legislative session next year, which it doesn't seem that close, but for us, this is our prep time to get ready for that session. There's going to be a lot of children-focused discussions. So just wanted to call attention to that.
This is Rose, and I can't find the raise your hand button on my phone, but I would like to put my hand up.
Go ahead. I think we had Kara with her hand up, and then Laura, could we go to you next?
Yeah, I had a quick question about, thank you, Chelsea, for that. But I was wondering, as we're moving into things like that, for family members, are we going to be having some more prep meetings prior to these meetings? That doesn't seem to have been happening recently. And I just wanted to make sure that we're thinking about those things. And I'm sure youth would love to have some sort of preparation in those sort of conversations as well, so that we can be more collaborative in, how we move forward into legislative, tackling that sort of stuff.
I thought you said heckling at first. At the end there, I was like, you could do that.
It's one of the same, I'm sure.
It's a choice. Yes, I can loop back with Nat and Jacoby. I have not been involved in all the details of CSAC, but I thought some prep was happening. So yes, we can loop back and make sure and even carve out specific CSAC time to dive into that if the group is interested. So thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
And Laura, whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you. I haven't said much today, but I've listened a lot, and I really appreciate so much happening and being made even more aware. I heard yesterday at our school district, they made an announcement about fentanyl, saying one pill can kill, as a campaign that they're doing. And I thought that was catchy, timely, and important. I'm looking to see what happens next with that. my daughter was able to switch from online school, having done that for several years during the pandemic, to a smaller middle school that is based on social emotional learning as a priority. And I can't say enough about gratitude that that program exists in the Salem-Keizer district. It really has a lot of sensory resources and career inviting resources and much smaller classroom size and things like that that are super helpful. I'm also mindful of the upcoming legislative session. And right now, between now and election day, there's less than probably 8 weeks left. I think it's still a great time to try to connect with candidates to ask them important questions on these topics for our children and young adults and behavioral health. So there's a lot happening on that page. What else was there? Oh, so today was the last day for, I think, some filing of pre-session concepts for legislative council for this particular window. And I realized in the process of talking to my legislators, there's still a lot of education needed. And so having information in digestible form for them is important, and not just for them, but for their staff. And I say the candidates as well. So this is a prime time if people can take a little bit of time and talk to the people that are in those decisions that are involved in policy making and budget and so much more. That's anyway, something I wanted to share. I got some good feedback too. I think there's good support for the topic that we're working on with the adult suicide prevention and the youth suicide prevention, especially considering the overlap for transition age youth. Thank you.
Oh, and before you go, Laura, we had a question. What program is that you were discussing at the beginning?
Oh, Roberts Middle School is in the Salem-Keizer School District. So, and then they had a high school before, and then last year they started with 7th and 8th grade. And then this year they are starting their second year with 7th and 8th grade, I believe.
Thank you so much. We did have a question in the chat from Miranda. Are there any trainings or resources out there for Narcan administration and education in regards to fentanyl?
I'm not an expert, but I linked to the OHA webpage that has a ton of information on it. So if it doesn't answer your questions, we can follow up. Bernardino can follow up with you to make sure we connect the dots there. Thank you.
All right, we did have an earlier comment from Roxanne Edmondson. I'm really trying to take this all in and thinking about how to apply more prevention in use arenas for kids entering foster care. It's such an overwhelming time and such a critical point of intervention. The ASQ screener alone shows how common suicidal thoughts are. And then we had another comment from her that the interventions are so personalized and the level of readiness for support or messages of support around them are so variable that it's hard to find a go-to set of ideas, but we're going to keep working on it. Any further comments from anyone or any questions?
I just had a comment. In my teams that I work with, we always take time to kind of honor the continuity over time and the work that's been done and recognize like where we are in the process. And I just wanted to share with this group because, I haven't attended this in the past, but just by listening, we are a part of the cultural shift. Like, years ago, these conversations looked different. And now where we are today, we're really part of this shift. And I think, taking the time to just remember that we're part of this process, it is a journey. And each time that we're all meeting like this, each time that we're sharing our resources, we're sharing what our programs are doing, we're pushing forward, we are a part of it. It can get really bleak for us in our field of work to feel like, man, there's just so much to do and there's so much to carry. And we continue to do it and we strive and we pull forward, and we are a slow moving system, but we're moving nonetheless. So I just wanted to remind us all of that and name that.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to chime in real quick, and I'm sorry for my delay response for Miranda. You know, you can reach out to me right off hand. I did send out some trainings that were done by a native group out in another state. I can't remember right now what the state it was in. I think it was Oklahoma. They did a train the trainer for Narcan administration. And when I got an email from Clackamas School District there, who actually wrote me to thank me for sending that information and did the training. Nationally, I think there was only like 17 people nationwide that attended that training, and he's willing to train others on the Narcan. So if you reach out to me through email, I'll research the contact and connect you with him to help teach anybody that wants to on how to administer Narcan.
And it looks like we had two great comments in the chat. Kendall Burns says that Northwest Instituto does harm reduction trainings in Spanish, just so folks know about their culturally and linguistically specific services. And then Kara Sump said, in regards to Narcan families, probably others can get Narcan from pharmacies. You do not need a prescription. The pharmacist can write one. And I highly encourage anyone with any narcotics in their home or known needs in their family to please get Narcan on hand in your home. Better to have it than not.
Yeah, and need for Narcan also, Gail Simmons is another contact. And then also people can obtain Narcan from the pharmacy through your insurance to have it at your disposal. That's information that sometimes people don't get or know about.
And I believe Kathleen Burns already hopped off the chat. I put her email in again for you, but she did, just as a reminder, to message her if you have any ideas about prevention, early intervention around trauma, and what else you might need to see from Trauma Informed Oregon to support this work. Oh, and then I have another question. Roxanne Franklin Wilson, anyone know what the laws are governing the use of Narcan in schools?
Well, I can't speak for all schools, but I know some schools are doing things where they are identifying certain staff that are trained to provide Narcan. Others, you know, there's the Good Samaritan law in the state of Oregon that, you know, anyone can apply Narcan without any negative ramifications toward them because of the Good Samaritan law. It's not all that complex. You know, it's most like the EpiPen. You know, the EpiPen, you stab yourself in the thigh and that's it. The Narcan is kind of a spray up the nostril to help them to recover to be able to breathe again. And so there's no specific limitations, but I think for obtaining Narcan within the schools, some schools are having difficulty because either they don't have a policy or they don't have anybody to sign off on the forms from a medical provider. I think a pharmacist could sign off, and that's been some of the challenges for the schools.
And we had two comments, one from Grace Bullock that Oregon Classroom Wise, it's in the chat for the link if anyone needs it, and I'll send it out as well. It's a great resource for anyone interested in providing support to youth and families, incorporates a strength-based, equity-centered, trauma-informed principles and practices. It's a large suite of resources free to all Oregonians. And then it looks like Chrissy put in a great link to the Oregon School Board approving naloxone, and I'll make sure everyone gets that link as well, but it's also in the chat for anyone who needs it. Oh, and it looks like Chelsea also put in a link regarding a story about Oregon City. All right, we still have about 12 minutes. Any further comments or questions for this group?
I was just gonna say real quick with the Narcan, from my nurse hat, that if someone needs Narcan, it will be effective. But if there's not a need for it, like an opiate isn't on board, that Narcan more than likely is not going to hurt them. It won't do anything to them because your receptors will only accept so much in your brain. So you basically just gave them something that they didn't need, but it's okay. So I think a lot of people are afraid of Narcan versus using it as a tool that it can potentially save lives.
Yeah, and I think it's just a lack of information or more education around the Narcan piece, because in southern parts of the state, some school districts just flat out said, no, we're not going to have it. And I think it was decisions from up top, and it's just basically for a need for more information and education on it. Thank you for clarifying that, Cara. It's very important to know that.
It also doesn't last very long. So make sure and ask for, get some help on the way. So that's, I think, the second piece to the puzzle that people forget is that it wears off quickly. And you do need to get help right away.
Thank you so much for that. It's such important information. And we still have a little bit of time. I will leave the floor open. It doesn't look like anyone has their hands up, so please feel free to speak, or once again, if you would rather send me a message and have me say that for you, I am always happy to do that. All right. So without any further comments or questions, I wanted to thank everyone for being with us today. Thank you so much, Bernardino, for your time and for presenting to this group. I think that we had a fantastic conversation and so many wonderful questions and resources provided by the group. I'll make sure that everyone gets all of that. And as a reminder, this was recorded, so it will be on the website. I can also send a copy out to everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to message Bernardino or myself. I'm popping my email in the chat, although I'm sure that most of you probably already have it already. So I will give everyone the gift of an extra 8 minutes. I hope you have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time to be here. All right, bye-bye.